Now, the union government has allowed states to decide if parental consent is needed by schools and the students, in fact, to attend the physical classes. Now, this means that parental permission is not a must if the child wants to attend the physical classes. In the modified guidelines issued by the Union Education Ministry, key norm was changed that mandated parents to provide a written consent if they wish to send their ward to school. Now, states and union territories have been asked to add these modified guidelines in the existing school SOPs. School bodies say that the move will help the state governments to consider opinions from all the stakeholders. My colleague Ayushmann Kumar now joins me on the broadcast for more on this. Ayushmann, a change in the SOPs for school. Now, a parental written consent is no longer required for students to attend physical classes.
Yes, in fact, it was in the S.O.P. which was released on December 17. But then we saw the cases spiking up, and for that reason, we didn't see that much of publication taking place. But now when the cases are going down and significant jump has been seen in the vaccination of the adolescents, this part has now been modified. The consent part has been now modified. The states have been told that they have to frame the guidelines and rules, and that written consent is no more needed if the child wants to attend the school. The children can attend the school, but again, the stakeholders' role is now up to the states, and that written permission is no more needed. This is all happening because of the rapid vaccination in the adolescents population, and also the ebbing number of the COVID cases that we are seeing in the country and in several states in India right now.
Right, Ayushmann, thank you so much for joining me with all those details. So this is the union government allowing the states, in fact. So the ball is in the states' court now, whether they should really be asking for the written consent. So it's totally up to the states. But as per the new SOPs, this particular consent, this written consent is no longer required. I'm also now joined on the broadcast by Lata Nair, who is a member of the Parents Teachers Association. Ms. Nair, thank you so much for joining me on Mirror Now. What do you make of these new guidelines as far as the SOPs are concerned?
Good morning, and thank you for calling me. Union government has now put the onus on the states. So it is now because each states have got their different COVID levels, and they know much better of their state much better than the center. So I feel that is okay. But at the same time, now I would like the states to say whether they are ready to really admit the children. Now, you can't just ask the parents first. First, you have to ask the schools whether they are ready, because you're going to send the children to school, and the school should be ready and prepared to admit all these children, and not, if you have social distancing and all that, that's not going to be possible. So that means you have to have your full class, all the children in the full number will be attending the class. So are they ready for dealing with such situation? And then comes the parent, because if the school is ready and they can convince the parent, so I don't see why the parent should have any objection. But at the same time, you have to also know that when you're saying as a parent can be emotionally attached to the children and say, oh yeah, this is what happened and this is COVID and I can't send my child. But are you not ruining the child's not education? I'm just not talking about education. I mean, the overall condition, the mental trauma that the child goes, he or she may not be showing, but you can know from their behavior that sitting cooped up all the time at home, they need peer, they need friends, They need to fight, they need to enjoy themselves, they need the outside world. And therefore, parents should also be quite, ready to send their children. And it is high time that
absolutely
children start to be good.
Right. Ms. Nair, in fact, stay on with me. I'm also joined on the broadcast by Deepa Kumar, who is an educationalist. Ms. Kumar, thank you so much for joining me on Mirror Now. Now, these guidelines that we are discussing on the channel also really focused on the smooth transition from online to the classroom learning by preparing these bridge courses and focusing on students who need these extra interventions. So that is also being put forth as far as these guidelines are concerned. So what do you really make of this?
See, what they are suggesting is not wrong, but yes, as I have been talking on your platform and sharing that it has to be a joint venture between the school and the parent. Um, my friend who just shared a little while ago that it is having an
Yes.
impact on the students. Of course, it is. I have been voicing this out, but as I said, that parents also have to come forth and take the responsibility as much as what the government is trying to do. They are doing their wee bit. They are encouraging schools to open. They are asking them to follow the protocols. And so, as educationists, I think that's a very positive step. But parents also should not play a blame game that if something happens to a child, God forbid, it may be just simple cough and cold, then it is the responsibility of the school. That's not true. We all have to come forward together and ensure the future of our children who are actually suffering, who are emotionally and they are not having any interaction with their peers. It is boomeranging on them. The gaps are increasing. So many things are happening, and the learning is getting affected majorly. But yes, parents, please rise
Ms.
up to
Kumar,
this
I
occasion.
just want your opinion on this thing that this move, do you think it is going to help the state governments to consider the opinions from all the stakeholders? When it comes to the stakeholders, we are also talking about the parents because initially there was a written consent that was required. Now that is no longer required. However, when a ward really goes to school, the parental consent is implied. It's presumed that obviously the parents will be in the know of it and they are agreeing to send their children to school.
See, earlier when they had asked for a written consent, I think that's a good practice because at the end of the day, school and parent have to take the responsibility. For me as an educator, I think both the players have to play in tangent with each other. So there is no, I don't think it's a good idea on the parents to have removed that clause. They should have continued with it. See, I'm a grandparent. It's my choice to send the child to the school or not, and not enter into some kind of a blame game with anyone whatsoever, whether it is government or whether it is school. I am also equally responsible for my child. So if I take that call that no, at this given point, I want my child to be at home and we can probably look into the options of the tech platform which the schools are offering, I'm all right with it. So I cannot be blaming anyone for that. But yes, you should have some.
All right, Ms. Kumar, in fact, stay on with that point. Let me bring in Ms. Lata Nair also. Ms. Nair, you were talking about the education loss and how a child really needs to be, among students so that the mingling is actually needed because otherwise the children end up being dull. Now, also in the budget speech by the Union Finance Minister, that acknowledgement of the learning loss that the children are suffering was mentioned due to the pandemic. So this particular move really is important in a sense because the children really need to get back to their classrooms because here we are only talking about schools being shut while other things are being allowed in the rest of the states.
Yes. So if and I also saw that they're going to allot some extra money for education. So it is good. They need that. And now that
yes,
see now when now this what the government is telling that we don't want, I mean they have taken that parents consent is not necessary. Now if as a parent, now if I take consider myself and I'm taking my child, I am taking my child to the park or maybe to the market, or I'm taking outside to a small holiday where I have seen many of the parents going around with their children. But when it comes to school, they're a little apprehensive. Why do you, if you can take your child, I mean the child knows that he or she has to wear a mask and this is what he has to do or this is what she has to do. I think you have to send the child to school. So there, now the onus is also not just on the schools or the government, it is also on the parent to see that you teach your child some do's and don'ts, so that whenever anything is there, the child comes and you are there preparing the child first. So when you are taking the child out, you see that your child is having a mask and all. So do the same thing to school. And I, if I sit worried and not sending to school because there's a lot of students there and they come up, I mean that's not the reason. But at the same time, I'm happy that the government is also announcing some extra money for education, which was very much necessary, because for the last 2 years, education has,
Right.
I would say, as good as gone to the trains.
Right. Thank you so much, Ms. Nair, and also Ms. Kumar, for joining me on the broadcast. So, new SOPs as far as these guidelines, as far as the reopening of schools for students are concerned. But let me tell our viewers, the attendance is still optional. And if a child is really coming to school, it is presumably with the consent of the parents. So, that's something to look out for.